Incredible game. Alabama lost to LSU in Alabama. Joe Burrow was awesome. Tua tried to lead a great comeback on CBS. And a reminder, you can watch all these great SEC on CBS games by going to cbssports.com/SEC, and that'll automatically direct you to the CBS Sports SEC live page. Yeah, that's not even in my rundown. It's a plug I just do because I love CBS and I love college football. I love the SEC. Joe Burrow, did he cement himself, Ryan, as the number one guy in your mock draft, on your draft list? Is he the top overall pick going back home to Cincinnati?
I had him going number one in the most recent mock draft. I don't know if he submitted himself. I think NFL teams are split. And Brady and I talked about this earlier on HQ with Petey Prisco. It's because he's done this for 1 year. Why has he been able to do this for 1 year? What happened? And I bounced this stat as well. His completion percentage from last year to this year is up 21 points, and that's mind-blowing. So is that Joe Brady, the passing game coordinator? Is it Joe Burrow just maturing? Is it the weapons he has? So he's number one right now. But if you told me Tua goes number one in April, I wouldn't be shocked at this point. I will say this about Tua. He played on one leg. He had surgery 20 days before this game. I thought he was so accurate with the ball, given all the things that was thrown at him, including a pretty heavy LSU pass rush. I was impressed with the way he played, even though he completed just barely 50% of his throws. I take nothing away from him from this game in terms of he had one bad interception. He had a silly fumble there towards the in the first half. Other than that, it's Joe Burrow and Tua neck and neck. I don't think you can go wrong with either guy, but right now I'm leaning Joe Burrow.
Yeah, for a lot of the points that Ryan just made, but I think the biggest question is 21 percentage points higher in completion percentage. He's already doubled his touchdown production from a year ago. What do you attribute that to? Is it the maturation process? Is it the maturation process of the guys he's throwing to and Jefferson and Chase and Marshall, Edwards-Helaire? I mean, Joe Brady coming in as the passing game coordinator. I mean, it's so drastically different at this point in time in his career in his last year. You're just trying to kind of put the pieces together because he was the full-time starter last year. And obviously he's a quarterback too. He got beat out by, granted, a first-round talent and pick in Dwayne Haskins. But that was the quarterback battle that he faced at Ohio State. They went with Haskins. He ended up transferring as a grad transfer and going to LSU. So I think there's some thought to, okay, is he the most talented of that draft? Probably not. His arm's not as strong as Jacob Eason or Justin Herbert. Is he athletic as, for example, Lamar Jackson? No. And he's probably not even able to move quite as well as Tua Tagovailoa can to create plays and buy time within the pocket. However, he does everything well. And his resume with what he's done this year versus 4 top 10 teams is ridiculous. So it's almost like part of me looks at it and says it's a no-brainer. And this is where you look at last year, who was the best player in college football? Kyler Murray. Don't overthink it. Draft the best player. Who was the best player the year before that in college football? Baker Mayfield. Don't overthink it. Draft the best player. It's almost like Cincinnati should take that approach with Joe Burrow. And honestly, like the hometown kid and all that stuff, it would ignite the fan base. But that's all going to come down to whether or not they win. Like, it might sell some tickets initially to get them excited, but it's still going to come down to whether or not they win football games in the long term, is whether or not that's going to work out. So that's the toughest part about this is when you look at him from the standpoint of what he has and what he possesses. His resume is ridiculous this year, but it's a head scratcher as to why we didn't see more of that last year. And then looking at him as far as a talent perspective is, and I think you have to ask this question, like, has he peaked? Is this as good as he's going to get? Does he need a team built out around him? Because if he doesn't have that team, he could struggle. He's going to go to a bad football team, the worst football team from the year before, Bengals or whoever else. So that's a question you have to ask yourself. And then Tua, I think he's got just a supreme ability for a feel for the game. When you watch him play quarterback, you say he has that it factor. The way he moves in the pocket, the way he's able to make certain touch throws and his deep throws downfield, and the way he sees the game and can anticipate. He's done that for his entire career. And as Ryan pointed out, he actually, fared pretty well playing on essentially one leg and versus a Dave Aranda defense for LSU with a bunch of pressure. So, for all those reasons, I just think it's going to be a tough pick between the two. I think some teams may be torn because they're just both that good of prospects.
What do you think the Bengals should do then over the next few weeks, Ryan? Should this be how do you deal with evaluating Ryan Finley here? Because I'm not going to sit here and bang the desk for Ryan Finley, who, by the way.
Yeah, you will, because he's an NC State quarterback. You're going to have one too many toughies, and it's going to lead down that hole.
Hey, look, man, it's 6:30 on Tuesday night. You know I'm like 12 toughies.
You're gonna drive to Wilson's house. You're gonna take a dump at his toilet and then just take an away game and leave.
Did somebody like recently away game your house? This is awfully like
no. Okay, I've got a story actually that relates to this. Okay, so I'm not gonna say what player it was, but there was a player on the Browns and another player was looking at his house to potentially buy it, and I guess that player had a party at that house and didn't realize there would be a showing the next day. And it was just an absolute mess when the other player and his wife walked through. And one particular thing that he told me that he could never get out of his mind is when he walked into, I think it was the master bathroom, there was just a big old turd and a just toilet full of toilet paper. But like just sitting there, that's it. No one decided to flush or anything. And at first glance, he kind of looked in and was like, oh gosh. And obviously it smelled. And then the realtor came in and looked and then was like taken back by it. It was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry there was bad communication and all this. And then he kind of went in, the player who's looking at buying the house went in and took a second look and was just like, it's a big dump. There's not a lot of toilet paper. Like, did this person wipe properly? So then they started to call him to question the individual that left it there for them, why they'd leave it not flush and then not wipe properly. So anyway, it went down this whole long rabbit hole of like just weird scenarios and just like, I don't know. I've never heard anyone who walked into a situation like that trying to buy a house before.
Is the allegation here that the player who was buying the house from that the person knew who was coming in?
No,
and was purposely,
they did not know.
You think it's just a random occurrence, like, or is it possible that
I think someone dropped a dookie and left. That's what I think, man.
You know who I think it was?
Who's that?
Freddie Kitchens, 100%.
This is a while ago. This is back when I was playing for the Browns. This is about a decade ago. It actually is a little further than that. So,
Freddie went to flush and then like forgot and it's like by the way, that dude called timeout with 3 seconds left in the quarter. Okay, like that's the equivalent of not forgetting to flush and walking out. I mean, like, it's the same thing. It's unbelievable.
You hate to see.
Completely lost my place. I'll be honest.
Hey, Brinson, let me run by you some of the standouts in that LSU-Alabama game who could be making big bucks on draft day. So, I mean, the offensive lines for Alabama, their tackles, Jedrick Wills plays right tackle, and then Alex Leatherwood plays left tackle. Those guys are studs. They both have a chance to be first-round picks. We know about Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devonta Smith. Those are all wide receivers that could potentially go in the first round. Definitely Jerry Jeudy and probably Henry Ruggs. Devonta Smith may fall. Terrell Smith, number 24, who was a terror off the edge for a lot of the game. He's battled injuries, ACL last year. I think he had an elbow the year before that. He hasn't played a lot. But if he stays healthy, there's some conversations that he might sneak into the first round, definitely be a day 2 guy, but health is going to be a big concern with him, but he's one of these crazy athletes. And then there's LSU. We talked about Joe Burrow. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has sort of come out of nowhere and been a big part of that offense as running back. Justin Jefferson's a stud out of the slot. Christian Fulton and Grant Delpit in the secondary. Grant Delpit has an ankle injury. He refuses to tackle people. I don't know why. If he could tackle someone, he would definitely be like a top 15 guy. Questions there. And then Christian Fulton is probably the second best cornerback in this draft after Brady's guy, Jeffrey Okudah.
Would you care to explain why you have the Panthers taking Jordan Love in the first round?
Oh, yeah. I talked about this with Pete and Brady on HQ earlier. So, as you know, Cam Newton has one more year in his deal. Who knows what his future is? Pete says he thinks he's coming back. That's what Pete hears. We'll see. Is Kyle Allen the long-term answer? I don't know. Yes, they drafted Will Grier. They clearly don't think a lot of him because he hasn't played yet. Maybe they have plans for him down the road. Jordan Love is sort of an athletic Cam Newton type. He is not Cam Newton, but he is insanely athletic, has a rocket arm, and he played his best game of the season last Saturday against BYU. He's had a terrible season prior to that, and there's no getting around that. Fantastic year last year. I feel like he's probably a day 2 guy, but if he plays like he did Saturday against BYU for the rest of the season, there will be a lot of chatter about him possibly sneaking into the first round because he, just like Justin Herbert, does everything that NFL teams want out of a young future face of the franchise guy. And when he is on, it's a lot of fun to watch. He has not been on a lot this year, but Saturday night against BYU was his best game of the year.
I actually have some breaking news right now in regards to something that could impact the 2020 NFL draft and Ryan's mock draft, even though he doesn't have this particular player going in the first round. Although now that I look through his list of players going in the first round, he's actually missing, I believe, this entire position group, if I'm not mistaken. I'm looking through it, trying to find the rest of it. In fact, this one's cut off, so I don't even have. Oh, here we go.
At least you're not, for the second straight week, someone on blast in a live podcast. At least you're not doing that.
No, we've got it. He actually does have one player going actually to a team that would make a lot of sense. However, anyway, I'll stop teasing. Notre Dame's tight end, Cole Kmet, who very well could have been a first-round pick at the tight end position. He blocks well. He's a freak athlete. Some people compare him to Tyler Eifert, who was also a first-round pick back when he was healthy for the Bengals, a game changer. But actually, they think Kmet's a better blocker. He's decided to come back for his 2020 season, his last year at Notre Dame, which is huge because it takes off probably the top prospects or one of the top prospects at his position off the board, even though I believe you've mocked Hunter Bryant, the tight end of Washington, going to the New England Patriots, which makes a lot of sense. However, Bryant, much more of a pass catcher, kind of like just a bigger wide receiver, not really a guy you're going to put at the point of attack, probably more of an off-the-ball tight end, similar to what we saw the Vikings do this year, taking Irv Smith in the second round from Alabama. And he plays with Kyle Rudolph as more of your traditional Y. Cole Kmet can play more of that traditional Y position, but he's a ridiculous athlete and stretch the field vertically. So big time, I should say, loss for the 2020 draft because he'll be there in 2021, but obviously a guy who wants to come back to school and still has some unfinished business.
Baseball player, too.
Yep.
How did you know that? There was like an alert. Did you get an alert?
No. I keep in touch. I have my sources.
I mean,
Nice.
he's doing a press conference right now, and he announced it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Brady's breaking news.
Okay. Well, if Brady had said it like 5 minutes ago, it would have been breaking news. I'd say now.
By the way, Hunter Bryant.
I was trying to be respectful and not cut off Ryan Wilson, so I was trying to let him finish when he was talking. I could have said it earlier, but again, I was just trying to be polite, something that Will Prisco knows nothing about.
Hunter Bryant's actually, you're exactly right. He's a move tight end, and he reminds me a little Evan Ingram in this game. He's not quite Evan Ingram. He's a little more raw than that, but he's fast. He has soft hands. He's a problem in the middle of the field. And look, he ain't blocking anybody, and he's not going to make up for Rob Gronkowski in New England, but he gives them pass catchers, and they desperately need that. And he's sort of a versatile chess piece, if you will, with Brinson.